And then I was blindsided by a breast cancer diagnosis. I had had a clear mammogram. I was just about to turn 40. And I thought, my dad died of cancer. It was colon cancer. His mom was a breast cancer survivor, lived to 95, diagnosed in her early 60s. But cancer had been in my family, and I now had a 3 and a 6-year-old at home. And I thought, well, I'm so healthy, I should set a baseline and get one of those mammogram things. So in I went for the boob squish, which was so uncomfortable for every woman listening. You know how uncomfortable that thing is. And I came out, we, got the clear results. And 11 days later, I was changing after a workout. You know how tight those sports bras get, right? So you're kind of like circling the boobs to the left, to the right. I call it like the soft tissue soft shoe. Mm-hmm. It's like 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. And they're just moving around. And all of a sudden I'm moving I breastfed both my girls. So I was very comfortable now with my breasts, and I knew them very well. And I went, wait a second, that's a weird lump. That's never been here before. But I just had a clear mammogram. So, maybe, it's that time of the month. I'm getting like a little bit lumpy because our boobs change every month a little bit of the cycle. But still, I could have stuck my head in the sand and not done anything because of the clear results. Mm-hmm. But I thought, I'll call my OBGYN. She's the only doctor who ever did a clinical breast exam anyway. So I'll call her, and I trusted her more than any other doctor. She delivered both my kids. She says, you know what? Just come in. Let me just give a quick feel. So she checks me out, and she's like, yeah, you know what? Look, you're turning 40 next month. The boobs like to make lumps, so it's probably glandular. Don't worry about it. She sent me on my way. It's nothing, she said. So now a month later, lump is still there. I think, okay, well, again, it's nothing, but I'll get a second opinion. I'm going to be proactive. Mm-hmm. But again, because nothing was pointing to breast cancer, I went to see my internist. I didn't have a breast doctor, so go to see the internist. He does the same thing. Quick feel, says, it's nothing. If you're worried about it, we'll keep an eye on it. Now, 4 months have passed. That pesky lump is still there. And now this inner voice is screaming at me, saying, Samantha, they're all saying it's nothing. How do they know it's nothing by feeling? If you're going to live with this, quote, nothing lump for the rest of your life, shouldn't you know it's really nothing? And it really helped. And my mom has always been my biggest supporter and my biggest advocate. And she's always in my ear. Is the lump still there? You should get it checked out. She could have continued every single day for a decade to tell me, go get it checked out. But if you don't take action, nothing happens. And so finally something hit that I thought, I should go to a specialist who looks at breasts every day as the specialty. What kind of doctor does? The only kind of doctor that does that is a breast oncologist. So there I am. I'm sitting at a breast center for oncology. I'm thinking, this is weird. I'm looking at a magazine like, what you should do when you're diagnosed with breast cancer. And I remember looking at the article, closing the magazine and going, well, that's not me. And I put it down. I had 2 ultrasounds in that appointment. We did a needle biopsy. She said, you're not crazy. There's something there, but nothing looks like cancer. Needle biopsy results come back. She says, I bring my husband with me. Okay, you guys, good news, bad news. Good news is it's not cancer. Bad news is I don't know what it is. So you know what? Why don't I take it out and I'll do a lumpectomy? Wake up from the lumpectomy. And she says again, we did a frozen section on the pathology, not cancer. Great. Week later, I'm going for my final pathology results and to look at the incision, make sure everything's healing well. And I tell my husband, who's saying, I should come with you. I said, no, honey, everything, this whole path has been, it's not cancer. You don't need to come with me. It's a gorgeous day. The kids are at preschool. Why don't you go golf or do something for yourself? Okay, fine. So he's off at the golf course. And here I am in the basement of this oncology office because, why do they have to put it in the basement, in the darkest place? They can't leave like a happy room. So anyhow, the breast center happened to be in the basement of this hospital, and the signal down there was not very good. And I couldn't get any cell signal to call anybody, but I would get intermittent texts that would come through. I was there for 4 hours. And I finally get a text from my husband saying, in all caps, are you okay? Well, what he didn't know, but obviously had a hunch in that moment, was that when the doctor came in with my final pathology results, she said, Samantha, you have invasive ductal carcinoma. And in that moment, my life changed. In that moment, my cancer journey began. I was sort of frozen in just the rapid fire of information and her drawing sketches of circles that are supposed to represent a breast and dots representing cancer, and just blindsided in every single way. And I thought, I'm the healthy one. I'm eating everything fat-free, low-fat, non-fat. Those red vines, those snack wells. I'm eating chicken breasts without the skin. I'm eating my egg white omelets and my cheeseless pizzas. I'm doing everything right. I'm exercising like a fiend. I got this. And then here I was with cancer at 40. My girls were 3 and 6. And I lost my dad. He wasn't there to walk me down the aisle. And all I kept thinking was, I can't not be there for my kids. I can't not be there for my husband who says, I don't know what to do with girls. You got to make sure you're here. And I finally got up to ground level to go to my car. And I knew I couldn't tell him over the phone. And I'm shaking. And I call him back. And I hear his voice. And I'm thinking of his text in all caps saying, are you okay? And the only thing I could squeak out is, no, I'm not okay. Now, I knew the kids were already home at this time, and I knew I couldn't go home to them and have this conversation with him. I said, I need you to swing by the house, pick up some tennis shoes for me, and meet me at the park where there's this long walking path. Because all I had to concentrate is getting down the freeway, shaky and scared. That in that moment, all I knew was I had cancer. And as all of us know, when we grow up and we hear the word cancer, it is such a scary word. And we all have certain thoughts attached to what cancer is. And for me, I lost my dad to cancer. So cancer was not a good thing, even though his mom survived cancer. He died. And he was the light of the life of my mom, my sister, and me. So I get down the freeway. I pull into a parking spot. I get out of my car. I see that he's just parked and he's walking from his car to mine. I circle around to the front of my car. He's coming to meet me halfway. And the moment he wraps his arms around me, I see this in movies and I think, how does that happen? But my knees gave out and I collapsed to the ground in his arms, bawling. I didn't know what to do. And we walked that, the power of nature and the power of exercise and movement. We walked around that park for probably an hour and we talked through it. We talked through how we were going to deal with this, how we were going to talk to the kids, if we were going to talk to the kids, when we would. And we kind of agreed that we were just going to take it one day at a time. And thankfully they were young enough that putting on a smile and a brave face, they wouldn't know anything was different as we gathered our action plan and treatment plan and all of that. That's when everything kind of changed in my life in a moment.
Oh my God, you get this information when or do you tell your children? So at what point through this journey did you bring the rest of the family in on it? They're so little.
Well, first of all, we needed to do something before I had surgery and let them know that things were going to look a little different at the house. And so when we finally decided to tell them, we told them in different ways and we told them separately. We really think that we thought it was important to tell them in the way that they would take the information based on their ages. And honestly, now thankfully there are so many books on stuff like that, great resources. At the time, we were just kind of winging it. But I knew that, number one, for a 6-year-old who's now thankfully 17, and I've been able to watch her grow all these years, we wanted to give her the word cancer without the scary attachment that we all have, because we realized we have an opportunity here. She's never heard this word before. It's just a word. Mm-hmm. So how do we deliver this word? Also, before maybe, especially because I've been in the public eye, I didn't want her to be on the playground. She was in kindergarten. So I didn't want her to be on the playground and have some other kid who heard their parents talk about your mommy has cancer. It's like, what? Right. No, she doesn't want, and have that sort of, what is that? And fear. And because, kids are very honest with each other. So it wasn't outside of the realm that some kid might say that to her. So we gave her the words breast cancer. And we also said, things are going to look a little different because mommy has to have surgery. And we kind of explained there's 2 different reasons you need to have surgery. Remember how grandma just had back surgery? Well, one reason you need surgery is because there's something in your body that's not working the way it should, and the doctors help to fix it. And that's what happened to grandma. And now you see grandma's doing just fine. Well, the other reason people have surgery is because there's something in their body that's not supposed to be there and the doctors need to take it out. And that's what's happening with mommy. There's something that's not supposed to be there. So the doctors are going to take it out and I'm going to be in bed for a little while. So daddy's going to pick you up at school or, her grandpa or whoever else was around that could help will pick you up at school, but I'll be here. And guess what? Then we wanted to reframe it and make it something exciting. But you know how you're not allowed to have snack outside the kitchen? Well, guess what? You're going to be able to have snack in mommy and daddy's bedroom. We put a plastic mat on the floor for snacks. And we had special art projects and new books that she got to do in bed with me so that there were positive experiences attached to a really negative and scary event. With our 3-year-old, all she wanted was to know when I could pick her up again and put her back in the crib. Mm-hmm. So we explained it to her in a much different way. And then when I was finally able to get out of bed, but I couldn't lift her for so many weeks, we had a new fun game. She'd crawl up onto my lap in the chair for me to give her bottle. And then she'd stand up in the chair. I'd turn around. She'd climb onto my back and I'd kind of shimmy over to the crib. Thankfully, she was 3. So she was very, like a little gymnast even back then. And then she'd climb off my back and into the crib. So I didn't have to actually lift her with my arms. So we got creative with it. I think the biggest lesson that I learned through my journey was how important it is for us to be our own best health advocates. Had I stuck my head in the sand and not looked to other doctors' opinions, I would have maybe found out much, much later that I had cancer, and maybe I would have been worse off. Also, to not be afraid to get second or third opinions. So within the first week of my diagnosis, I already saw 2 other surgical oncologists to see what their recommendation for treatment would be. I also had multiple radiation oncologist appointments, multiple reconstruction surgeon appointments. So I also started to learn the language, and each doctor also speaks differently to you. So just even the learning process, because you're trying to take a sip out of the fire hose when it comes to cancerversity, and it's very, very difficult.
So what is your status now?
So I was so excited because I celebrated 10 years cancer-free. It was my 20th wedding anniversary, my 10-year cancerversary, and my 50th birthday celebration. We went to Croatia as a family. We went to Venice for a couple nights, Barcelona for a couple nights. It was magical. But before I left on that trip, I had been following a little lump that I had found months before, and we were following it with ultrasound. They had said every 6 months. I said, no, let's follow it every 3 months. And we've been following it. So on the 4th ultrasound, the shape had changed. And they said, you know what? We should biopsy this. I said, can I go on my trip first or do I need it right now? They said, if you could put it in the back of your head, go on your trip. I said, yeah, because this is not cancer. I've done everything that I possibly could do. I've changed everything in my life. And that's something we haven't touched on. And I know we want to jump into that as well. I've changed everything. My approach to how I'm eating, how I'm sleeping, how I'm exercising, adding more stress busting into my life. I've been on an estrogen blocking medication for 7.5 years. I'd been off it for a couple of years at that point. So this is definitely not a worrisome thing. We went on our trip. It was amazing. Came back, had the biopsy, got a phone call, Samantha, it's cancer. I went, what? Okay, wait, what? Now, receiving that information this time, 10 years, actually is now 10.5 years at this point later, was a very different way to receive it, because now I was an empowered patient. I had a lot of wonderful, oncologists in my own team, from my own podcast, many other people in the wellness space and medical space that I'd been interviewing, that I had relationships with. And so I didn't break down crying. It was more of that shock of like, what are you talking about? And also a little bit of that imposter syndrome. I'm like, wait a second, I've been working so hard to make sure this cancer never comes back. What's going on right now? And how can I continue to share my story, to live? I thought I was healthy, and then I realized I had to reach my healthiest healthy life. So then my book and my whole brand is Your Healthiest Healthy, how to get the toxins out of what's in, on, and around your body and make all these lifestyle changes and take control of your well-being in a way that maybe you didn't realize you could or even should. And I'm doing all that. And I just got diagnosed. How do I continue doing all that now? That's my whole life now. I'm a health coach. I'm certified. So it was a really different kind of walls crashing down on me because I was sort of at a loss. And then it was the fear. Has it metastasized? What is this cancer? Is it a new cancer in my breast? By the way, for those listening who are thinking, okay, wait, Samantha, you had a double mastectomy. You were on an endocrine therapy for 7.5 years. That's what I did. And I thought I was safe. And is this going to come back now to me? Because once you have cancer, no matter what kind of cancer you have, you're always looking over your shoulder, right? Every time you have a new pain or a new weird symptom of something, you think, is it this kind of cancer? Is it that kind of cancer? Is it my cancer coming back? And all those fears rushed to the forefront. It was a very scary time. And now my girls were 13 and 16. That's a different conversation. My 16-year-old was actually overseas doing a study abroad program for a summer. And our 13-year-old was home wondering, why is mommy always outside on the phone? And she started to get really worried and concerned. And we didn't want to worry our older one because we don't want to ruin her time. So as parents, right, we're always worried about them and what they're going to think and what's their perception and how are they taking information. So while I'm trying to protect them, I'm trying to also navigate this recurrence with my husband. And I had to go in for the CT scans and the bone scans and the DEXAs. And I didn't want any of those because there's more radiation with those. And now I know so much more and I didn't want that. But I had to choose to have those so we could find out if, God forbid, it had metastasized. My dad died because of stage 4 cancer. And that was my biggest worry. And I told myself, if this is a local recurrence and it hasn't gone anywhere else, I can handle that. I've been there. I know what to do. It's going to suck, but I can get my head around it and I'm going to be okay. And for all of my stage 4 sisters out there who have gone through the journey and are living with metastatic cancer, they are warriors in so many ways. And I knew that I could go to them for support. It was also a journey that no one is choosing. So when I got a call, I thought I was going to have to wait a week or so for the results from these scans. I love my oncologist. She called that evening. Samantha, you're clear. I could breathe again because, of course, that was the worry in my head. How am I going to get my head around this?
What does your clear mean?
Clear meaning, sorry, thank you. It wasn't stage 4, meaning it hadn't metastasized. So now I knew what was in front of me. I have a recurrence. Now let's figure this out. The reason also that I pushed to get the ultrasound and pushed to get ongoing, see, brain fog, by the way, not only menopausal symptoms, but also being on endocrine therapy, the brain fog got really bad. And so when you're searching for a word, and as a journalist who's used to being like on top of things, being able to spitfire things out on camera, live TV, it's horrible. It's horrible.
I can imagine.
It just goes out of your brain. Like I have no idea. Either sometimes I have no idea what I was saying, or it's just you're searching for that word and you can't find it.
At least you can use that as an excuse, though. The rest of us just have to be like, what just happened? Where am I?
Exactly.
Be like, sorry, endocrine. Okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, thankfully, the stage 4 part of it was out of the picture. Now I had to figure out what was in front of me. I'd been following with these ultrasounds ongoing. And the reason I was pushing so hard to be followed more closely with this little lump that I found. And by the way, it was tiny, smaller than the size of a pea, but like the pencil head eraser, basically. But it's because it was in the same location as my initial tumor. And that's what gave me pause. I didn't think I had cancer. I did not think I had a recurrence, but it was in the same location. And it turns out it was a local regional recurrence. So back to anyone who is listening who's gone through what I've gone through with a double mastectomy and you think I shouldn't have to worry about cancer again, you pretty much don't have to hopefully worry about cancer again. But there is still a 5% chance. We know when you have double mastectomy or single, in the breast that you have a mastectomy, we know that there's never a 100% absolute that they got every last cell because things are microscopic. So that's what turned out. It happened also based on the location of my recurrence. My initial lump and the recurrence were right up against the skin, kind of at the sternum, the 3 o'clock position. Had my initial lump been right in the smack in the center of the breast and they took all the tissue all the way around it, they probably would have had really good margins. And I had very good margins. But the chance up against the skin like that to have some microscopic cells. Now, I strongly believe that all of the lifestyle and habit changes that I made it grow incredibly slow. It was tiny. It took 10 years for it to grow. And so I'm grateful for all the changes. And instead of going, well, you know what, screw it all. I'm just going to go back to a full toxic life of, 60 to 80% of my life being toxic. It's okay to be 10% toxic.
Right.
And that's my goal. Just whittling things down to get down to being just 10% toxic.